Thank you for joining us, joining us again in our Universal Canon of Literature series. The last video that we did was the Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. Now we're going to make a quantum leap into the past, 13th century France. As a matter of fact, the title I've chosen may seem alien to our ears, Aucassin and Nicolette. And it's by an anonymous author. Nobody knows who the poet was. But it happens to be one of my personal favorites. I discovered it years ago at university and fell in love with it. It's an engaging love story. And it has all the exotic elements that just makes it a constant page turner. It's set in the south of France, in the country seat at the time, Beaucaire. Now, you have the Count's son, Aucassin, and this chap is desperately in love with a young woman, Nicolette. She's a Saracen captive. Now, what does that mean? Saracen, of course, at the time referred to those Muslims who had fought against the Christian Crusaders in what is now the Middle East, in particular places like Acre, Syria, or the holy city of Jerusalem. To be a Saracen would, in the eyes of the European nobility, in particular the French nobility, which were hosts to the Order of the Temple or the Knights Templar, and some other religious orders dedicated to fighting in the Crusades, it would have at once evoked fear, revulsion, and cries of heresy. In other words, this is not the match that this young French nobleman's father would approve. And on top of that, she's a captive. She is a daughter of, as we are told, the king of Carthage. Now, of course, Carthage it applies to what would be modern, that tip of Africa. Now, Count Goron is planning a different match for his son, obviously. He doesn't approve of his son dating a Saracen captive. So he ends up putting an end to the courtship by imprisoning both his son and his paramour, of whom he cannot approve. Both Aucassin and Nicolette escape and encounter numerous dangers while they're escaping. They become separated and, get this, are captured by Saracen pirates. Finally, they have a reunion, and it's brought about by the courageous Nicolette, who disguises herself as a jongleur. Now, what is a jongleur? A jongleur is it's a type of minstrel, if you will. So she has the creativity to disguise herself as a jongleur. Now, it's written in a very special French dialect, and those of you who are Star Trek fans, especially Next Generation, will pick up on the dialect. The name of the dialect is called Picard, after whom the character in the Next Generation is played by Patrick Stewart. It was supposed to be, from that line. Their family came from that part of southern France. So this otherwise anonymously written 13th century work, written in the 1200s, was written in the Picard dialect. And scholars are convinced that it is a work of urbaneness, of polish, of refinement. Of course it would be, because the audience in those days would have been just that. They would have been the upper class, so-called elites. members of the nobility who celebrated the deeds of knights and ladies in waiting, the chivalric elements of society, chivalry. And the audience then would have been a lot closer to an idea of a jongleur and would have understood the immediate irony. Basically, that's it. Download this, the translation. You can find it in various sources. It's a beautiful tale about a young man, to recap here, that will not give up his love, even if his love is a captive of whom his father could never give the approval that he needs. So, or to whom he can never give the approval that he needs. And it's about, this time it's not star-crossed love. It's about love that didn't go bad, but that in the end actually is a success. And read this wonderful tale of Aucassin and Nicolette. And join us the next time as we take down from the bookshelf yet another title, which constitutes the universal canon of literature. And at this point, I would like to emphasize what I mean by universal canon. I'm not talking about just the Western canon. For years I taught college English and humanities. We incessantly referred to the great body of works as the Western canon, which of course started with works such as Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and would end with Dorothy Canfield or Doris Lessing or Sylvia Plath, compass of thousands of years. But out of fairness and trying to get away from any sense of an imperialist past, because imperialism is real, colonialism, imperialism. I may not agree with all the theories concerning it, but without a doubt, over the centuries, we did exclude many, many other great works that hail from other cultures and other geographical regions. What I intend to do through this series is far from throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I refuse to give up what we call the Western canon. I'm basically a student of the great Harold Bloom of Yale University, and I believe strongly in what's called the Western canon. But instead of disposing of it, we need to add to it. I also belong to that generation which truly believed in inclusion. But I'm not here to argue any points, merely just to promote this idea, this concept of a universal canon, which will include the great works of literature from places as diverse as Africa, India, Algiers, what have you. A universal canon of literature. There are many great writers who come from places such as Kenya. South America has produced so many ripe and brilliant writers, just ripe with ideas. We are basically going to go through several hundred, possibly more than 1,000 titles in the coming weeks and months. So I'm glad that you're aboard and on board. I'm glad that you're aboard and that we can discuss and discover these wonderful gems and jewels together. All right. Until the next time. Bye.